right? Because I think we as insurance professionals sit behind blinders. We're not in the community. Who's in the community real time? And we don't leverage our minority agents, our diverse agents enough to say, what are the products and services that we need to deliver on? And what does that look like? Until we start to do that, then we won't see a shift. When we talk about the future of the insurance industry, we got to do a better job of leveraging the resources that exist within the communities that are our consumers. Hi, y'all. It's Ngozi Nnaji with AKO Brokerage Services and AKO Insurance Consulting. This is the future of insurance.
Ngozi, I'm excited to sit down with you and just kind of share you with the world. I've been watching you as a fan, not stalker. All the things you have going on.
Never stalker status, right? We're never stalker.
No, like LinkedIn is safe. That's professional, right? But I'm really excited to sit down with you. Can you give people a little bit for those who haven't seen you yet on LinkedIn or anywhere else, because you're out there in the marketplace. Tell us a little bit about you and kind of how you got to where you're at.
All right, guys, grab your coffee. That's going to be a long one. No, just kidding.
Well, I've got mine, so we're good.
So it's interesting because like my story, like when I first started to tell it, I was like, nobody really wants to hear it. But the more and more I tell my story, I think it's okay. It's kind of nice, right? Like in the sense that, I'm first generation Nigerian. My dad's a immigrant, so came over. He has 3 daughters, and so was really intentional about changing the narrative around Nigerian women, their roles in society. And granted that, over the last 30, 40 years, it's definitely changed based on kind of Western society and its influence. But especially when he came, he wanted to have, more impact and more influence as to what we did and who we were. And so he was very intentional about picking our professions for us. Okay. Nigerian men do that, right? And so he determined that because of my love for math, my sophomore year in high school, he showed me this news article that said, actuarial science was the number one profession, or being an actuary was the number one profession, as far as pay, stress, right, mobility, career growth. And so I didn't even know how to spell the word. Like, okay. And he chose that for me. What's interesting about that story is, again, 3 daughters, he chose each one of our professions. I have a sister in engineering, a chemical engineer. I have another sister who's in healthcare management. And each one of us have stayed in our respective industries for over 20 years each. And so it's really telling around how well he knew us, right?
Yeah.
And not only that, but just kind of this role of the first real male ally that we had, right? Or allyship in general, right? And so I love him for that. And so when people, you know how it is in the insurance industry, like 99.9% of us never intended to be in this
accidental, yeah.
And I'm the 0.1% that's like, yeah, my dad did it. My dad did it for me.
Well, and the ones who say that, usually it's like, my dad was an agent or my parents had an agency. And so your dad he wasn't bitten as well. He wasn't an insurance person.
No, he was an engineer. He is an engineer.
Okay.
And definitely insurance was not kind of something that was on his own personal radar, but definitely when doing the research, came across it and thought, it's one of those industries we all know that's never, ever going away, ever. Yeah. So job security, yes.
That's awesome. That's a first. I have not heard that story yet. And it is really fascinating, like how well that worked out for the 3 of you. That's really cool. It's like they say, like when a matchmaker makes a match, like a good matchmaker, they last longer than what the statistics would imply for a marriage. Like, so exactly, was matchmaking your career.
Yeah. So exactly. So what's funny is that even with our respective industries, we've all worked together, right? So I brought each one of them into this insurance conversation.
Okay.
Right. Because we know insurance touches everything. And so, I think that's just a true testament of how wide, vast, deep, and the breadth is of our industry, and want the world to know that it doesn't matter. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. It touches every aspect of the economy, everywhere. So, and you've been a broker as well. Like you've been in the industry for over 20 years now. What kinds of things have you done?
What haven't I done? I think I tell everyone, like, I think the only discipline I haven't like in some way touched, it's claims. But I almost feel like, as an underwriter, you indirectly touch claims anyway. So
right. It's all your fault in the end.
Right.
So yeah. As a claims guy, I'm gonna have that fun today, but that's all right.
One of my best friends in the industry is a arbitrator mediator, and we always have this, kind of back and forth around intent versus interpretation, right?
Yeah.
In the role that each plays. But I mean, I started off obviously, kind of in the actuarial discipline. Didn't last long. I was told by the manager who was over me in my internship. He was like, look, well, it was a female, excuse me. She was like, look, this was 25 years ago. This is 26 years ago. You're like, your personality, like you're there's too much. You're doing too much talking. You're doing too much engaging. You're doing too much.
Well, so for those who aren't watching this, you get these bright yellow glasses on, which is awesome. I appreciate that. But I think that's not like anyone who's looking right now is like, an actuary?
Right.
No, there's something wrong with your camera. No.
So then went into underwriting because kind of that was the next parallel.
Yeah.
I've been on the business development side, I've been a large brokerage, so with the alphabet houses.
Yeah.
Like I said, underwriting. I even did some customer service, customer management type stuff. But like the only thing I haven't really done is claims, and I always would say risk management, but definitely working with your clients to mitigate risk is kind of a risk management role. So
yeah,
pretty much a lot of it, right?
Yeah.
I feel like I know all the discipline.
Well, and part of AKO is that's a brokerage, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then you also have this consulting side. So what is your business right now?
So the brokerage is an independent agency based here in Connecticut. And it's really focused on supporting, helping minority-owned businesses. And I feel that, especially post, we're kind of still in COVID, if you will, the need is there, right? We know the conversations that have been had within our industry around coverage or no coverage, right? And how, a number of home-based businesses were started during the pandemic. Even Black females, the number one demographic around starting businesses and being entrepreneurs. So I really felt that there was a need to support them as they figure out, right, scaling employees, like what does it mean to grow and protect assets? And so that's kind of the focus of the brokerage of the independent agency. But, pandemic, post George Floyd, personal experiences birth the consulting side. And so it was really an opportunity for me to really, at first it was a matter of, and this is another story, so I hope you don't mind me telling.
No, yeah, that's why you're here.
Is that, I have a strong relationship and engagement with the National African American Insurance Association. I was just appointed to the executive board, so I'm excited about that. But when the pandemic happened, thank you, and when George Floyd was murdered, I was the president of the Greater Hartford chapter. Okay. And so Hartford used to be, I don't know if we can claim it anymore, the insurance capital, right? During that time, I got a lot of phone calls from senior executives, EVPs, C-suite around, how do I do this? Where's the Black talent? How do I find it? Give me some names, give me some numbers. Like, what do I do, right? Now, that role is a volunteer role as president. Yeah. And so if you can imagine, right, I'm still trying to manage my agency. I have these leadership positions, and now 40% of my time is facilitating phone calls with executives. And I was like, as much as I'm passionate about it, like I can't do it for free anymore. Like I can't just continue.
You can't survive. Yeah.
Right. Can't survive in that manner. And so, and then also I felt like, and this is where I start to get intentional, and I choose my words very, very carefully, because I also felt that it was performative. These calls that the C-suite they were making, they were just doing it because in response to an unfortunate event, right? They were trying to kind of get in front of potential backlash around not having the demographics necessary, right, within their organizations. And I also felt that, once you start charging people, it's a very different conversation, right? Once there's kind of this exchange, right, of knowledge and payment, then I think there's more attention being paid. There's a focus on results and metrics, right? Because they've expended money on something.
Yeah.
And so this consulting firm was kind of an extension of that, right? So how do I make employers, right, pay attention, be more attentive, be more intentional? And so originally it was a matter of, okay, if you're calling me for talent, that's one thing. But let's try to make it such that it's not just a matter of bringing them into your organizations, because I'm a firm believer that success is about retaining them. It's not
Yeah.
about just bringing them in. It's about how long can we keep them, and how do they grow and develop, and what does that look like? So the consulting firm in its original form was about recruiting, right? And attracting talent and bringing talent in, and helping organizations create the culture in which they need, especially on BIPOC talent. That's my focus. This firm is solely focused on BIPOC talent. But how do we start to make cultures that cater to them, right? Or at least support them in a way that they haven't historically.
Yeah.
Now, the consulting firm of yesterday is not the consulting firm of today.
Okay.
Things have changed. And I think alluding to your point earlier, it's like, as you identify the need, right, you try to create solutions. And so it very much, the recruiting, the executive search is still very a core part of the consulting firm, but we've expanded, right? Now we touch on a variety of different things and a variety of different parts of our marketplace that help to create this, what I call inclusive industry. Not just focusing on one vertical, recruiting and attracting talent, but also on how does diversity play out in the operational functions of our industry, right? How does diversity play out in underwriting and claims management and risk management? What does it look like for the agent, the distribution component, right? Being an independent agent, right? That's close to my heart. So figuring that part out, I think is going to be so key to how our industry shifts.
Yeah.
And that's actually the panel discussion, or excuse me, the conference that I'll be attending this week, Business Insurance Conference. There is a panel discussion about the role of minority agents in shifting the narrative around inclusivity within our industry.
And why is that in particular? Is it because agents are tied into the community? It's like that's the front facing piece of the industry?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Right. Because I think we as insurance professionals sit behind blinders, right? We sit behind fences, right? We don't really get, we look over every once in a while and we're like, oh, okay, yeah. But we're not in the community. We're not the ones engaging with the community. We don't see the shifts in family dynamics, right? We wait till the report has been done by McKinsey or somebody else to tell us where those shifts are occurring. But who's in the community real time?
Yeah.
Right? Who's actually engaging with them in real time? And we don't leverage our minority agents, our diverse agents enough to say, what's going on. You have a pulse. What are the needs? What are the products and services that we need to deliver on? And what does that look like? So until we start to do that, then we won't see a shift. And again, this is just me talking.
Yeah.
Right? We talk about the future of the insurance industry. We got to do a better job of leveraging the resources that exist within the communities that are our consumers. Right? They're buying our products.
Yeah. Ngozi, I want to ask you about some of your efforts, because hearing how you're framing this up, I'm starting to understand more of a number of the things that you've done. And your mod is a part of the reason why you're going to this event. While, within a couple of days of us recording this, it'll come out later, but it's because you're being recognized for all of your efforts from Business Insurance. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
What I want to understand is help people hear a bit of, like, is Black Friday, is that the and I saw it's happening in other cities as well. Like, tell us about this. Like, we can hear about things and be like, that's nice, and someone's working on that, or we can hear about things and be like, that's nice, and what could I do to work on that? So I wanted to hear some of the ways that you're sort of putting your points around that kind of tip of the spear into the community of changing the way insurance engages into practice.
So this event, I mean, again, these initiatives come from real life experiences, right? I mean, being an independent agent, like I left, I was an underwriting manager, with a team, and kind of, decided at one point that wasn't my purpose. So when I flipped to independent agency, I started a scratch agency. I didn't have any clients. I didn't have any carrier appointments. I didn't even have an agency management system.
Yeah.
And what I knew or what I experienced kind of developing my agent and scaling it or attempting to scale it was that the scale was not balanced, right? The access to appointments, the access to capital, the access to advisory networks and resources was not there for me as a Black independent agent. Now, that story should not be a new one, right? I mean, we kind of understand systemic racism to some degree. I think that, society does. And then also the impact that government, financial institutions, the lack of mistrust that exists between the Black community and those institutions. And so when you translate that to Black owned agencies, right, it's the same story, right? We're still dealing with some of that or a lot of that in our industry. And so Black Friday is an attempt to get at a couple of different things. It's really based on the fact that Black agents need equitable opportunities.
Yeah.
We don't need equal opportunities. We need equitable opportunities. And it's interesting because you're about to get me on a tangent here, Brian. There's a part of me that doesn't believe equality exists, right? Like I don't know if I'm buying into that in the stage of the game. And the reason I say that is because as individuals, as companies, right? I mean, we're all different, right? We all have different needs. That's what diversity is all about, right? Like even if two white men were to stand side by side, there's differences amongst them even, right? So maybe their political beliefs, right? Maybe their religious beliefs, right? Disabilities we don't see. And so understanding that we're all unique, we will never need the same thing. Yeah. We will never, so this concept of equality, I think, is one that we've, put out there, but it's kind of this falsehood, if I can use that. I know that's kind of strong. But,
no,
right?
But so when you talk about equality versus equity, right, what do you see as the difference between them then? Is it about opportunities?
Right. It's about giving me what I need, when I need it, and how I need it, right? To get to where I want to be. And where I want to be might not align with what you think might be for me, right? Yeah. So it's all these kind of subjective, not objective, subjective, factors in this conversation. So I bring that up to say, Black Friday is about equitable opportunities. So as a Black agent, my number one priority is not profit sharing. My number one priority is being a resource to my community so I can potentially impact generational wealth gap or the racial wealth gap, excuse me. So when you approach me, insurance company, don't approach me around $500,000 in 1 year and you get an X number of points. Talk to me about what I can do, what products I can bring to my community that can help my community, right? Engage me that way. And so part of this conversation around Black Friday is how do we get insurance companies to understand the story, right? The need, the vision, the purpose of different demographics, agents, so that they can better engage, increase success and results, but then also support the survival and the need for thriving in the community as agents. Because again, back to your earlier point, we are the bridge, right? We are the access point to the community. And so we create an environment in which insurance companies come, they and when I say equitable opportunities, we're talking about appointments, right? We're talking about what are the financial resources, right? We're talking about understanding of products and services and how they play into the various communities being represented. So we have those conversations all day. I mean, the morning component is about how do we increase the appointments, right? How do we get direct access to capacity? And then throughout the day, we talk about what does it mean to have access to advisory networks, right? Most Black agents, especially in the P&C world, don't understand the lingo, right? I mean, and what I mean by lingo is that when they approach a carrier, they don't necessarily know their numbers. They don't know their profitability ratios. They don't know their split between personal and commercial. Like they can guess, right? Like, it is their book of business. But that's the lingo that we haven't yet been taught that's necessary, right? From an insurance company's perspective to create credibility, right? With these carriers. No one's taught us that. So how do we create a knowledge base that says, okay, look, guys, when you're engaging with these insurance companies, you got to know your profitability ratio, 3-year, 5-year, maybe 10-year, depending on how long you've been in existence.
Yeah.
What's your number one, industry segment within your book of business? Like, these are the things we got to teach our agents. So those, so again, rather than coming to us with, how do we support you hiring a new producer? Well, maybe it's as fundamental as, well, why don't you help us create a business plan? Right?
Yeah.
So we can sustain ourselves. So again, we're trying to create this conversation that's very different, creating, again, a different narrative. We're doing it from city to city because, again, the demographics from city to city, from state to state differ. And obviously you also recognize that with agents, right? Like, licensing is different, right? It's from state to state, right? Not kind of a national or regional thing. So that's another reason why we keep it kind of city to city. But we're excited. I mean, we're doing Houston in November, and we're doing LA in February. I'm extra excited about LA because, if you don't mind me just mentioning, we're collaborating with the Asian American Insurance Network. So we're going to be in the Crenshaw area. And so the history around Black and Asian Americans and the community support and even kind of some of the tension, right? Because that's part of the story. That's part of
the
is critical to understanding, right, how agents thrive and survive in that community to create generational wealth through insurance. And so we want to tell that story. We want that to be part of the Black Friday story, because, again, when insurance companies meet these Asian and Black agents, they need to understand that. They need to understand that there's generational history here that needs to be recognized. I call it the new insurance history, right? The Black insurance history, the Asian insurance history that's never been told. So another component of Black Friday. Sorry, Brian. I told you I keep talking.
No, there's nothing to apologize in this, because this is exactly what I wanted to get into. A, and B, one of the things I noticed from one of your Hartford Black Friday events was, like, not everyone's Black.
True.
Like, and that's kind of the point, is it can't just be those who you presume to be directly impacted are the only ones who are given a damn, frankly.
Exactly.
All of us should be there. And so I love hearing about I thought you were going to say the LA one you're excited about because it's in LA during the winter and you're so
that too.
Maybe that too. Let's hope your flight's not impacted by any snow. But no, I think that's critical, is each community should be engaging and thinking about its specific issues. To your equity point, is we all face something different, but also coming together and trying to solve the bigger problem that we all face when we start coming together as people, and recognizing between groups we've got issues, and across groups, and are there similarities, are there differences? There's a huge movement in the Latina community right now as well. I'm thinking about Sigo Seguros, things like that are like, look, the people have not been served, and we need to think about from a distribution standpoint. But then there's the whole, well, what about the distributors, and how are they being served? I mean, it's a really exciting moment, I think, where suddenly we're allowed to have some of these conversations, but we need to do something with that and push it ahead. So that, I mean, I'm excited to hear about the LA event. You talk about it all you want. The rest of them.
Coming to a city near you. That's
for real. And look, each one of those markets and regions faces very different versions of the themes that you're talking about. And, south, north, east, west, central, it doesn't matter. There's no universal single set of this is exactly what it is because we all look like this or like that. That's not the point. And you have to respect that locally. So it has to be a local thing. It's the same reason why NAIA has regional and local chapters.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Where, you mentioned like the future, where is this going, and where do you think we are relative to that?
So, no one's actually asked me that question. I mean, I've had conversations behind closed doors about what are you trying to accomplish here? But no one's really asked me that on any formal platform. I will tell you this. I believe that the insurance industry is not just one that's, COVID resilient, right? Recession resilient. It's more than that, right? It gives people hope. And so I think for me, utilizing this industry as a tool to, again, create this empowerment amongst underrepresented groups is really where I'm headed. And so I think insurance, there is a need to create ecosystems within the larger system, right? And so I want to focus on creating a Black insurance ecosystem, a Latinx, insurance ecosystem, an Asian insurance ecosystem, not for the purpose of segregation, right? I mean, I'm not trying to look for, but I think there is this opportunity to create these spaces that empower us to think and look at insurance very differently, right? Yeah. I think about the Black ecosystem of insurance, and I think about how people don't recognize that it was the insurance industry, Black-owned insurance companies, that really created the Black middle class. And when we talk about Black Wall Street, like Tulsa and other cities, it was those insurance companies that reinvested in those communities to help build them and help to get them to a point where they were reinvesting in themselves, right? So if we start to think about what insurance can do for underrepresented groups, to me, it's beyond words, right? It's so powerful. And so ultimately, I want our industry to kind of look at that and say, hey, we can have pockets of these subsets, right, that are functioning independently. But then to your point earlier, how do we start to interact with each other and create an intercultural industry, right? So we're not kind of focusing, internally, but also focusing externally.
Yeah. Where do you think we are in that journey? Like, I know for some folks, they may look and say, oh, everything's fine now. We've got, everyone's talking about it, so it's done. And I think those are probably the people who you got those early calls from. They're like, we need to do something. Can we tick a box? But then there's also people who are like, we've made no progress. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're in the trenches. Where do you think we are on the journey?
We got a long ways to go. Yeah. Well, and I don't mean that, but so there is no end, Brian. I think that's where I'm trying to get to. Like, people think that there's going to be a silver bullet and one day we're all going to be inclusive and ta-da, it's going to be done.
Yeah.
Dude, like, this is going to, we will never reach full enlightenment, right? We'll never get to the point where, because as the world continues to change, as society continues to change, so will we. Yeah. And do you see that happening or stopping anytime soon? No. Right. So
nor
we
should
will
it
always be on it should exactly. It should. We will always be on this journey. And I think I did a presentation to a group of female agents and agency owners. I was like, I think everyone just needs to take a chill pill. Right? Because this is very much a marathon that never ends. And I think these knee-jerk reactions around what we need to do immediately right now. And I get it, right? There's urgency in it, but you're not going to last. Yeah. Right. That's why we see now companies who put up those, those statements around doing better. Where are they now?
Right.
What are they doing right now?
Yeah.
Right.
And No, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, and I think part of this conversation around what companies need to do is, again, just relax, right? Like understand that strategically, this is going to take you generations to resolve. Yeah. Oh, not even resolved, because again, like I said, it never can be ultimately resolved. So, just be confident and intentional about what you're doing today and ensure that there is impact, right? Yeah. And so that impact gets impacted again, right? It's future serving to the extent that it will just continue these efforts till we get to a point, till we get to a point where it's inherent in what we're doing, right? We're always responding to the change, knowing that change is coming.
It's like the engagement in it is the one big change you have to make, is to be engaged in it, not to be like, we have to put in these 6 recruiting practices and these ERGs or whatever else, and then we're good. Like, it's striving for this. Oh my God, we got to fix something. We got to put it in now. And I need to be able to show that we're doing these things. You're missing the point. It's about how you are on an everyday basis. And that's the bit. You can't expect all the numbers to move tomorrow.
Right.
Or they're fake if they have.
Exactly.
Like, going back to kind of your early inception for both of your AKO businesses, recognizing that if we can engage differently ourselves, the impact we have on the community, and the bigger DE&I and the bigger equity, not equality issue is profound. And to do that, we also have to have that same engagement, but with ourselves. Like they're completely intertwined. I love that notion. It brings back to why insurance is actually so important. And like, there's nothing that happens in the world without insurance behind it, directly or indirectly. So we have to think about both of these interface points.
And it's the perfect vehicle, right? It's the perfect vehicle, I think, right? Because it does interact and interface with everything. It just becomes the channel that is most ideal, I think, to just seeing that work done.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you for spending some time with me. Where can people, people want to see what's going on with, is there a Black Friday event coming into their community? What else is going on? How can they be engaged? Where would you tell people to go to turn for these things? Other than following you on LinkedIn, which I'm definitely linking to that.
Well, that was going to be my number one.
You're one of my like 10 must follows on LinkedIn, so that's an easy one.
Great. So it's working, right? All the late nights is working. But no, definitely the follow on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram as well. But we have a website, AKO Insurance Consulting, where we do a lot of kind of marketing of our events, and we're events focused because we believe in doing, not talking. Like talking to me is so annoying sometimes. That's all you're doing, and you're not actually doing the work, then again, it's for naught. So a lot of our events and stuff are on AKOinsuranceconsulting.com. We have a sisterhood conference coming up. We have 1,000 Black interns. That's still very much part of the initiative. We work with HBCU IMPACT around recruiting and attracting, HBCU students into the industry. So there's all the things, and you can find it there.
Okay, and I will link to all that in your LinkedIn profile. I can't thank you enough for giving some time today. And I will say, like, it may seem minor, but the brightness of your glasses. I'm here on a rainy day in my basement, and like that's a bit of sunshine. So thank you for that. So if anyone's listening, be like, you got to go to YouTube and watch this.
Watch this.
Yeah.
You have to see the glasses.
You have to see the glasses. Thank you so much for the time. And I hope that it's got people thinking, because we need to, and keep thinking.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you to Ngozi for making some time to come on the show. It's so great to talk to her. And she's very busy. So this week that we're recording, she's getting recognized with the Alonzo Herndon Award from Business Insurance for her work in the space, all the stuff we were talking about. She's got these Black Friday events coming up, and she's trying to make a difference day to day in her work as an agent and as she engages with the community. And I hope that you take some of that and think, well, what am I doing to engage, and how am I serving people with different needs and different things that define their sense of equity, right? And what would help drive them, would protect their business, would allow them to pursue their dreams, their goals. And am I serving them in a way that supports all of that? And maybe you don't know how. So you can engage in these events and, talk to people and start to learn and open yourself up. And it's the kind of thing that once you get rolling, the more you get into it, the more you get into it. So I invite everyone to do that. And you should follow her. I will put the link to her LinkedIn and Instagram in the show notes. And you can also get, following AKO at AKOinsuranceconsulting.com. So thank you to Ngozi for spending some time with me. Thank you to all of you for tuning in, and I will see you back here next time.